It's the Lekker Rugby Pod, only on Megaphone Rugby.
Welcome back to the Lekker Rugby Pod. Harry is on the mend very quickly, so I gathered him together. I made him, put up his knee and come talk to me about the Champions and Challenge Cup finals. I told him I want to understand what's going on here. So here he is. Welcome back, Harry.
Other than I'm not sure. Like, if you have more sleep, can it make you more dumb? I think sometimes I'm waking up in my convalescence post surgery that I'm actually more stupid as I get more sleep. Maybe I need to have that sweet spot of 7 hours, not too much, not too little.
Yeah, you're becoming a bit of a zombie if you sleep too much. Just to put things into perspective here, this is actually 7 o'clock in the morning for Harry. So he just woke up. I've been waiting, twiddling my thumbs all day long, waiting for him to wake up because I'm 7 hours ahead of him. But anyway, at last,
And you're
I
so
was,
and you're so cold. I can see that
yeah.
you're stuffed up. You're ready for the cold coming
I look
through
like
the
the
rent.
Michelin man. I'm telling you now. I hate being cold. It's not even that cold yet. But no, I think the older I get, the colder I get. Let's leave it like that. Let's leave it at that. Let's talk about the Challenge Cup final. Firstly, that's Friday night. Bath, Johann van Graan's team versus Lyon, Arne Botha's team. Let's to put it in South African terms. Just quickly tell me what's happening there and what can we expect.
Yeah, so in both of these finals that we're going to watch, there's a clear favorite. Sometimes there's not. And in fact, a lot of years you go into these finals and it's a flip of a coin, which kind of makes sense if you've got the right format and you've got the best teams sliding into the plate challenge and then the champion cup. Usually you have a point or two in it. I think this is an interesting one because you have Johan van Graan's team, one of the best teams in their leagues, leading the premiership by quite a bit, by sort of being in a group of death, pool of death in the Champions Cup. They got booted down, but they didn't do anything that much different from some of the teams that got in, like the Saints into the Champions Cup. And so they find themselves up against the Lyon, which is on points differential, they're kind of in the top 4 or 5 of the top 14, but on bonus points and log position, they're clearly far below. And so, I mean, to be fair, if the middle of the road top 14 team was as good or as favored as the clear top premiership team, then we have bigger problems in the premiership than we thought. So I think the bookmakers, the pundits, the French journalists, the people who write about top 14 are clearly saying it would be a big upset for Lyon to take this. Lyon's going to have to play a bit like Saints did against Leinster to beat Bath. The men from Bath, Johann van Graan, has constructed a power team. He's embraced elements of the bomb squad in that you have Thomas de Toy, who is probably in line for being in the Premiership Team of the Year, the 15 Player of the Year. I think he's up in running there, and a try scoring prop, a swing prop who scores tries and he's not scoring tries by accident. These are designed plays. So when they're in the A zone, as they call it, the attack zone, and they're within 7 or 8 meters, tank is the call. And he gets the ball at the front of that pod. He can tip or he can go. So they're reserving one of their best players. It's a lot like Malcolm Marks. It smacks of Bok thinking there that Johan is using. Johan has also built a very heavy set piece team which can grind you down. And at various points in their season, when they've had to win, they've stripped it all back. And they've gone to full Bulls rugby, and just even though Finn Russell is their guy driving it around, just picture Finn Russell doing kind of a Mornay Stain impression, which is he's kicking the most, he's putting people in position, he's keeping the ball in front of his forwards. And so in this struggle, it's going to be a huge upset, and it will be the pressure is all on Johan. He left Munster under a bit of a cloud. In retrospect, people in Munster have said much better things about him. I was at Munster and people said Johan van Graan built a lot of the seeds that have then resulted in Munster being competitive, even with one hand tied behind their back under the Nucifora system of Ireland that puts all the talent, conglomerates it into Leinster. So Johan looks like someone who's on the up, a young coach, smart coach. Now he lands at Bath and he has unlimited budget compared to South African clubs. So he has the ability to get a Finn Russell and get someone else, whereas if the Stormers landed Finn Russell, that'd be it. Everyone else has to be, guys from the Hamiltons. So, yeah, I think Johan van Graan has a lot of pressure on him, is my point. If he were to slip out of the Champions Cup, slide down to the Challenge Cup, face a middle of the road top 14 team and lose, then a lot of this would be called a mirage. I mean, in one sense, he'd have to win the league, but it also would send a message that, teams like Saints or maybe even Tigers have a little more X factor. So he has to battle against that Johann van Graan criticism, which is that he builds a good team, he builds a solid team, but it doesn't have the magic. So I would imagine that he went to sleep last night thinking, this is my time. And this is my time thinking is always pressure. I'm looking for Bath to have this game in the final 20, 25 minutes. I don't think Lyon just goes away simply. All French teams have an ability to rise to the occasion and play out of their skulls for a while. But if you go, player by player by player, and you go composite, which is not a great way in rugby to decide something because you need more groups. Kick return versus your kick chase is a better combat. You don't compare 11 versus 11; they never face each other. So the rugby is difficult to put side by side. But if you did pick a team, you would have 11 or 12 guys from the West Country of England, and you would have 2 or 3 sprinkled in for Lyon. So my big build-up for this game is just that this is an example of a young South African coach who's gone abroad, first to Ireland and now to England, well regarded by both of those populaces, beloved by his players, and gaining new tricks. A line-out king coming up basically through the Bulls system and thinking he was Heineke's line-out sidekick. He wants to show that he can build attack. He has a lot of weaponry, but in the end, it's going to look familiar because if he wins, it's going to be most likely by the power game, by forcing a shape that denies the 2025 trend, which is 5 tries to 4 and 6 tries to 5. You would assume that that Bath and all the guys on the team are going to be really up for this game to keep it to a tougher grind in a phone box. Don't play too much into the trams. And even Finn Russell, I would think, would come to this taking the 3, kicking the ball 30, 32, 34 times, and then just outlasting them, bringing in the big guns at the end, like Thomas Tutoy. So, yeah, my prediction on this game is going to be something along the lines of 28-12, 28-16, a comfortable win for Bath. If it's not, and so if it's that 10%er, 15%er that we've seen this whole season happen, serious questions are going to be posed by a team that's heavily funded, building a new stadium, renovation project in one of the most comfortable settings in England. All the pieces are there. There's going to be some serious questions. I think Johann survives it, but it's the sheen will be off the rose, as they say. He will have to show some extraordinary results then in the playoffs of the Prem. So flip that around. Let's say that Johann does what he's supposed to do. He holds serve, he beats Lyon, then he goes and wins the Prem. You're looking at probably the most promising coach of all the South African coaches posted abroad, because that's no joke. It's no joke to maintain 2 campaigns at a time. Anyone will tell you that. Dobson, Jake, they will all confirm that just the ability to platoon your players, keep people healthy, keep rotating people in, have strength and conditioning, soft tissue health, morale, and keep a guy like Finn happy if you're playing a more disciplined way. That's good man management. There's something funny about Johann too, in that he's cheekier than people give him credit for. He always seemed like the good son, and following in the footsteps and not ruffling any feathers. There's a bit of a swag to the guy, and if he does win this one and then go on to win the Prem, hopefully he'll let loose a little bit, show us a little bit of his crazy side, because he's earned it. He's one of those guys who's labored really hard to pick up different parts of the rugby match. So I'm full blown pulling for Bath. It's not a South African team, obviously, but it feels like it in some ways. Now you can always find a South African. So Arno Botha, your buddy from from Pretoria is going to be fielding. He's on the pitch for Lyon, and Lyon's got plenty of weapons. But I just think in this one, I think it's attritional. I think it's classic knockout rugby. There will be nerves. And we saw a year ago, the Sharks came into the same kind of environment that in the end, the knockout kind of rugby that we don't like to see all the season long, that Sharks have been doing, and here they are. I think Bath has done the same thing, is they haven't been Gloucester, they haven't been Saints, they haven't even really excited, a bit like maybe Quins at times. But Sale, Tigers, and Bath are the real kind of rugby that I think stands at the end of the season. So that's happening here in a matter of minutes.
Just talk to me quickly about, you mentioned points difference. And when you talk points difference, we talk about the Harry Index, because you're not a fan of bonus points. Put Bath into perspective with Saints for me. Saints playing in the Champions Cup final, the big Kahuna, and Bath playing in the sort of the consolation prize tournament. But Bath's actually the better team. Where are they situated in the Harry Index at the moment? And which do you think, on paper, should be the better team? I know, apart from everything else, maybe the Bath is now leading the league and everything else, but they're not in the Champions Cup final. So put those two teams into perspective for me.
Well, I'm happy you asked that, because today, via a dove flew to my house and dropped a parchment rolled in a little cone that was brought from Mount Ararat, and it had the entire all 4 leagues, which I've just posted faithfully on behalf of the Harry Index. And what's interesting is the Saints are the biggest variable. So when you look at a composite of what you did in your league and then what you've done in these cup runs, there's a clear upper tier, and Bath is inside it, along with your Bulls. Bordeaux is in there. Leinster, and even though Leinster is sort of fading, it's in that top run. And then you have this next layer, which has teams like Sharks, it has teams like Glasgow, it has teams like the Crusaders, it has teams like Bayonne, where it's difficult to know where exactly they fit. And then just underneath that, you have teams that have underwhelmed. And the Saints are in there. The Saints are way, way down, akin to teams like Munster and maybe the Blues. And yet they have this little arrow up that the Harry Index has drawn for me that basically posits the idea that were they to come around and beat someone tomorrow, you have this very strange conundrum. They wouldn't automatically go to the top, because that wouldn't mirror the season fairly, but they'd make a huge jump. And the huge jump would be about getting right at the right time. That's it. Because in rugby, as in all these sports, getting right at the right time, finishing well, is a whole lot more important than what you did on week 1, week 2, week 3. Sure, Saints have struggled. We can look at the reasons they struggled in the early part of the season, and there are reasons for them, not excuses, but there are reasons, so you can understand them. The absence of England players, the fact that their entire core, when they go to play for England, when you rip that out, they have nothing left. There's nothing underneath it. Whereas you can continue, if you have Pacific Island players, South African players, if you're a French team and they call away to France, you still can put out 10 internationals. So the Saints didn't have that. That's one thing. Number 2 is they just had a hangover from winning. And so they've had to do the hard thing that the Blues were not able to do, that looks like Glasgow maybe is struggling to do. So there's some reasons there. But so now they sit as one of the few teams in this whole Harry Index that you can say, well, you guys don't make any sense, Saints. Like, you are just a schizophrenic, bipolar thing. Now, if they get put away easily, comfortably by Bordeaux, then we'll kind of go, yeah, they really were who they were. And they had one great night. They had a few, wonderful just performances, and they had one of the best wins of the year against Leinster. But it's not enough to put them into the top tier. So you could have a situation where the Saints, just lose by a little bit. And in retrospect, we look at it as still they're far below the Bulls, far below the Chiefs. And so just one strong run, which is really just a couple of wins, isn't enough. But I think the season has taken shape. Points differential is always important. ability to win, though, in tough situations, doing what the Hurricanes did this weekend, which is go to Brisbane and beat the Reds. It always counts for more when you can go into someone else's patch and take them down. So that's sort of a asterisk here is Cardiff as the site for the finals. It does feel very much like a home game for Bath. And it does also kind of feel like a home game for Northampton. I think the drive on the national highway system from Northampton to Cardiff is probably 2 hours. And you could say, yeah, but from Bordeaux, what's the difference? I mean, it's going from the Atlantic coast of France and landing in Wales and getting there is it's going to feel like you went somewhere. So I do think we're looking at an interesting, like I said, a very interesting final setup where, unlike most of the time, the neutral venue doesn't feel that neutral, and the underdog does feel like a true underdog.
This is not really a index discussion, but I'm tempted to ask you, at the end of all these seasons, the URC winner, the top 14 winner, the Premiership winner, who's going to be catapulted to the top? Which competition will count the most? Or the Super Rugby, for that matter? What's the article saying?
Oh, yeah. Well, let me try to pick up a chart that I just got. This is the one I got. And I'm just going to look at the shape. And the shape looks like the top 14's the middle is the strongest. In other words, there are 6 teams or so that you could put in the middle that every team in the other league's middle would have a hard time. Maybe even top tier would have a hard time. Bayonne, Lyon, Montpellier, La Rochelle, Clermont, and Castres. Those are all strong teams. That's the middle. We'll call it the peloton. The Irk's middle is Stormers, Edinburgh, and Munster. And if you want to go upper middle, it's sort of Sharks, Glasgow. So Sharks, Glasgow, Stormers, Edinburgh, and Munster. I don't feel confident about those teams putting La Rochelle, Lyon, Clermont away every time, but I feel like it's a give. It's close. Above those, Leinster Bulls, above those, Bordeaux, Toulouse. Those feel like proper heavyweights. To be honest, now when all the dust has settled, it looks like Leinster is not quite as almighty as we had thought it was. The Prem, really only one team belongs at the top level, and it's Bath, which is why Saints is such a weird player here, right? But the middle of the Prem it's difficult. Tigers and Sale making late runs, but the body of Gloucester, Bristol, Saracens, Quins, I almost think they're a little bit below the Irk middle and the top 14 middle. So I've kind of slid them down with maybe Tigers and Sale, although Sale copped a hiding by the Stormers. There's a bit of a slip by the Prem as a whole. So I'd almost put it top 14. The Harry Index has the top 14 above the Irk by a little bit, above the Prem by a little bit. The Irk's a bit ahead of the Prem. And then you have this sort of weird whammy out there in Super Rugby. I think as the season has worn on now, Reds have really slipped. Moana, Blues, Waratahs, Highlanders, substandard. They are definitely below. They're weaker. The Super Rugby is now weaker, I think, clearly than Irk and top 14. They're more on par with the Prem. The teams that have emerged from Super Rugby is just the Chiefs. The Chiefs is now number one. There's a little gap between them, Crusaders, Brumbies, and Hurricanes. So I think as the power structure sits now, if you're trying to get a top 10, you'd want to have at least 2 or 3 from top 14 and Irk, and then a couple from Prem and maybe 1 from Super Rugby. I think unless something dramatically changes with the Brumbies and the Crusaders, the Super Rugby only deserves 1 team in the top 10.
You're going to draw us one of those very special graphs, where you put them into perspective. I want to see one of those again. Yeah, it's time. I think it's pretty close to the end now, so it's time to start weighing up the odds. Yeah, I like this kind of discussion. Let's move on to the Saints quickly. You mentioned that a bit of a neither fish nor fowl. You don't know where they belong. Are they up there where they should be, or they're just there by luck, or what's happening to them? What can we expect from that game? We just heard the news that Trockie, Jan Augustus, was in the Springbok alignment camp. Apparently that was quite successful. The Springboks just sent us a 49-minute voice note with no sound on it, so we don't know what they said. We'll find out pretty soon. So anyway, so that probably with Jan not being there, that must be a bit of a setback for them. What are you expecting from that game?
Rocky was a really big part of the Saints. He's also continuous. He's a cult hero in Northampton, not just because of his personality and because he can play an instrument and he's good on the jaw. He's actually a dynamic player who can get you over that gain line when you have no business getting over the gain line. When you're in the 6th or 7th rock and the cleaners haven't arrived on time, he's a carrier who doesn't need a lot of cleaning, if that makes sense. He could just get you there. So, I think, when you look at the Saints and what they did really well, they're a really good gain line team. And Trocky's right. He's a big reason why they're a good gain line team. They're the best team in the entire world of the 4 main leagues, the 45 teams, according to Opta Johnny, who has really good stats at committing 2+ tacklers. So having carriers that make you do a double tackle. Trocky is near the top on that, but the team is the best. They're also the best at dominant tackling. So Henry Pollock, Josh Kemeny, Trocky, and even some guys in the back line, sort of underrated big tacklers like Tommy Freeman, they dominate you in the tackle. So picture the Saints as a team that doesn't try to do everything well all the same time. They try to do a few things the best. The classic fox versus the hedgehog. And so when they're trying to get you, they don't even try to maul. The least number of meters produced by mauling is the Saints out of the 45 teams. That's remarkable, right? So anytime you see something the best or the worst out of a big sample size, 45, that's telling. It tells me that they know themselves, they're confident. Maybe we don't have a good maul, so let's not even try. Let's just skip that step. If they kick to the corner and they do put up a line out, they get a line out and they feed it. Because what they do want to do is get to their high passing backline, 163 passes per game. To put that in context, your Bulls, are doing about 120, 110. So that's a big difference per game of 40, 45 extra throws of the ball. And so, the Saints want to get it to a certain part of the field and do their magic. They want Finn Smith with the ball in space, making decisions that are not scripted. Because the more they have Finn Smith and they have Dingwall and they have George Furbank and they have Tommy Freeman, Ollie Slightholm, this is where they think they can win most of the matches they win. They didn't have those guys at portions of their season, so that's why they haven't got a very good record. In this cup run, they do. And when they have Dingwall, Freeman, Furbank, Smith, Max, these guys running at you, Alex, I'm sorry, not Max, Alex Mitchell, when they're in space and they're making decisions that are quick, they're just as dangerous as Bordeaux, who has Luku, Jalibert, Louis Bilbari. Pinot looks like he's made his way back from injury, I think. Moafana, Deportier. And then off the bench, Rohan, the big Rohan is back. Another cult hero. So, a back shaped like a forward. So this is not a classic battle between tight forwards. When you look at the tight packs, it's not a vintage year for the Champions Cup. You have Iogan, you have Adam Coleman, Tongan player, used to play for the Wallabies. That's about it. It's the battle of the loose forwards that's really exciting. Guido Petty been moved from lock. He's always been a sort of a 6'4" guy. He's not a classic 2-meter lock. He's just really good in the air. But so he's playing off at 7. With Trocky out, they've moved Pollock to 8. Josh Kemeny is a big, raw-boned Australian loose forward who really should be playing for the Wallabies, but has kind of been, outlawed out to England. He's got the Player of the Year award from coaches and his fellow players, not Pollock, but Kemeny. So you have this sort of really hard running. The Alex Coles has also been moved out of a lock into a flank. So you have big, loose forward trio with speed up against each other. Pete Samu playing for Bordeaux. So Pete Samu and Guido Petty from Argentina. Kemeny, Pollock, and Coles. There's a really good international flavor between the 6, 7, 8 battle. We've just been going through 6, 7s, and 8s in our series with Andre, and talking about how so much of that is interchangeable. And when you pick one player in the loose trio, it affects the other, and you have to see what's going on. So the late change where Pollock goes to 8 instead of Trocky, you would wonder about that. The ability to shuffle at this stage, and you know what you've been doing going into the ruck area and the carry clean area with Trocky. Now, what does Pollock do? Pollock's not 120 kgs or whatever Trocky's carrying around. He's a slimline, young Pierce Feast type, where it could be a wing if you want it to be. And so, yeah, I don't know if Bordeaux can muscle up and they can keep this thing in the trenches, which is why I think maybe they did pick Guido Petty at open side, which is bizarre. I think, yeah, they might be looking at something different here. Instead of having a big 5-try to 6-try run fest, maybe Bordeaux is coming out of this physical, ultra physical top 14 and looking at the Saints and thinking, yeah, I don't know if you could really hang if we play an hour of bash ball, snot faced, smash mouth rugby, and then we have Louis Bielbery carrying away the scraps and running away. If I had to guess, Bordeaux thinks that they can do that they can muscle up and then create chances at the end when the Saints are pretty much done. For the Saints, they need to actually do exactly the opposite, which is get the game open as soon as possible, do what they did against Leinster, which is blitz, and then scraps get turned into tries. Post the score, get into oranges, either ahead or with a free-flowing game. Lure Bordeaux into a fight that I think Bordeaux always thinks they can win as well, which is, oh, we're just going to play basketball today. That's great. And the Saints have their best chance of not losing. They should lose, but they have their best chance of not losing if they can get into a free flow. If it's just a classic grapple arm wrestle, I think Bordeaux wins easier. So this presents an interesting question as well, which is, does Bordeaux want to win with style, or do they just want to get the win? Like, by hook or by crook, we don't care if we win 13-11. Let's just get the win. History of Bordeaux shows us that they will take the bait. That if you start to tempt them into, oh, look what I did, can you do something better? They will take the bait. They will not exit by the kick. They will exit by the run. They will take extreme risks, and it's going to be up to Field General Luku to calm everyone down and say, no, we're going to box kick. We're going to chase. We're going to get the scraps, and we're going to score, Courtly Aronson type of tries with LBB, our Lekker back. And that's how I see it happening, actually. Interesting stats that don't often get talked about for Bordeaux. They got really good scramble defense. When we talk about Lekker backs, we're not just being funny, tongue-in-cheek. Louis Bielbery and Moafana and Buros, their fullback, they're really good scramble defenders. How do you pick that up? So look at the stat that Opta does, which is you have line breaks allowed, and then they have a stat that says what percentage of line breaks where someone has broken your defensive line and they're behind you and they're running free, what percentage of those turn into tries? And you can look at the top list of stingy teams, and they're all the leaders. You can look at the line breaks that turn into tries, and you can look at that top level, and those are all the top teams. So Bordeaux, non-surprisingly, and Saints are really good at turning line breaks into tries. They're really good at getting into your 22 and scoring. But what about when someone else gets in? Bordeaux lets you in. They're not really stingy at preventing you from getting into the 22. They're also not that stingy at allowing you line breaks, but they don't let you turn their line breaks into tries. It's classic Springbok ball. I mean, that's what the Ninava defense does. It bends, it doesn't break. It shows you space, then it shuts it down. It makes you think you're going to score, then you don't. And then on occasions, it does, which is what happened to Leinster, by the way, is it does give you that space, and then some awful, horrible nightmare days, you get to run in some tries, but they're only once or twice a season. So I think that's interesting. I didn't pick up on that on Bordeaux. I thought they were just, you score, I score, you score, I score, and then I got more, so I win. They really are very, very good at not letting you finish your breaks into tries. The other thing they're very good at is, you remember the game we featured about Munster, where they took 9 lineouts off of Munster? By Bordeaux moving having Coleman and Cazot at lock, moving Guido Petty, an Argentina 50-plus cap lock, to number 7, and Pete Samu, a very good line-out jumper as well. You've got 4 line-out thieves on the pitch, and you've got heavy lifters. So they have like really big props that can lift you really, really high. And so I would imagine they're going to attack the Saints line-out. The Saints do use the line-out as their primary set piece originator of tries. If Bordeaux can take away that weapon, then that's going to be a problem for Saints. Now, Saints do have a fallback, is that they kick return really well. So they have the highest percentage of kick return originated tries, about 14%, I think, in all the tables. So pick your poison. If you want to kick the ball away, Bordeaux, you're gonna have to realize that Freeman, Furbank, Dingwall, Finn Smith are really good at organizing the kick return. They'll hit you with channels. It won't look like a set play, but it is a set play. And that's also where Pollock is super dangerous, because he's basically a back. He has back speed, but he's going to show up in the tighter channels. Beyond that, I think if everything goes to form, if both teams played exactly how they should play, must play, can play, Bordeaux wins by about 5. Where would that not come true? People miss kicks under pressure. It's finals. So you have a kicker that has the yips, and you miss a couple that you should make. And now you're looking you kind of look around and say, do you want to take it? Do you want to take it? You change kickers in the same match, the dreaded change kicker. That could be a problem. And then, as always, cards, unforeseen, momentary madness, 2 centimeters wrong. I hit you in the chest, but I come up too much and hit you in the chin, and you go away. So, yeah, I think that's where we sit. And I suppose one thing, though, we'll say, the whole rugby world seems to be rallying around the Saints, because whether or not you're okay with an English team winning, this is not the point. It's the type of team that we imagine and we hope exists, which is a team that can, be the underdog, wear the underdog label, but wear it gladly, come out and take a red hot go. Don't try to just squeeze by and maybe win, but try to win with scoring and playing rugby. The players will probably, over time, Henry Pollock might become more unlikable. Right now, he's on the edge of likability, unlikability. But right now, it's all new. He's got a lot of swagger. He's got a lot of vinchat. But as long as you back it up, you're okay. So it does position itself as a nice game for the neutral. With Bath, I really know I want Johann to win.
Mm-hmm.
With this game, I'm a little bit more on the edge, especially with Trocky out. I kind of think I might approach this game as a true neutral and enjoy it, and then just see how I feel. Somewhere in the middle of the game, I'll start to know who I want.
That's going to be my next question, because I always say I never know who I'm going to support until the game starts. Then I realize who I am subconsciously supporting. And at the moment, from what you've been telling me, with Trocky out, Ruan being there, we learned this week, Heine Adams, ex-scrummer from the Bulls, is an assistant coach at Bordeaux. There's a bit of a South African angle there. I might lean towards them a little bit. And also the Saints beat the Bulls at Loftus. I haven't forgiven them for that yet.
I'll tell you this, it'll make the Harry Index really complicated if the Saints win as well.
Yeah, luckily, it's not up to you now, it's up to the Oracle.
Bordeaux has been at the top of the Harry Index for quite a while now. They were in the top 3 all season, and they were in the top 2 at some point. They supplanted Toulouse, and they went ahead of Toulouse before Toulouse started losing. So it was an accurate prediction. And then they went to the top. So if Bordeaux loses to the Saints, it's going to be a head scratcher for the Harry Index.
Mm-hmm.
He might be across. He might be a bit upset. I don't know. He might even go incommunicado. He might just go on strike for a while. But yeah, this is one they should win. I do think I've just said something about Pollock, and I'm not saying anything bad about the young man. I do like big characters. I like the charisma, and it's good for the game. But for every way in which Henry Pollock sometimes gets on that line, taking the pulse, doing these celebrations, I really do like the young man, Tommy Freeman. as sort of a good example of having all that charisma, all that success, but not quite going that far. And then Finn Smith is like an old school rugby values kind of guy that anyone can look at post-match, the way he's interviewed, the way he carries himself, and realize this is a good group of people. So if I had to choose right now about personality-wise and what I think, I probably am leaning Saints. It's almost like this bad dream I have where I'm not as hateful towards England rugby as I should be. It's been going on for about a year now. And yeah, but there's plenty to like on Bordeaux side as well.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. All right, on Monday, we're going to be talking about the index, the latest iteration, because after this finals, it's going to obviously have a bit of an impact on it. We're going to talk about that. And we're also going to be discussing this 20-minute red card that's now going to be have an expanded trial, which means it's being forced down our throats. So we're going to have a talk about that. So I'm looking forward to that. Thanks, Harry.
Yep, cheers.
It's the Lekker Rugby Pod, only on Megaphone Rugby.